All right, and so for our last video, I'm going to go into a more thorough discussion of what it is I'm going to be looking for when I'm grading your blog posts. Looking again at the rubric, but in a little bit more detail, and also incorporating ideas from Language and Learning Chapter 4, which I talk a lot about when it comes to citations and how you plan on creating your blog post, right? What language you want to use for this. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to show you what a former student's blog post look like, so you get an idea of what it is that I'm expecting when I say this meets the conventions of a blog post. So let's watch the final part here.
It'll be graded in 50 points, 20 points for analysis, 20 points for use of sources, and 10 points for design. They'll be worth 4% of your grade, each of them, for a total of 20%, 5 of them for 20%. Analysis and use of sources are the biggest, they're the most important, right? And you can see for the A range what you need to do, the B range, the C range, and the D range for each of them. Remember, I told you that completing the bare minimum, doing what the assignment asks, the average is the B. Going above and beyond what is asked of you gets you the A, right? So that happens right here. Overtly proves that the student understands the text and theories presented in the prompt. If you're not proving to me that you understand these things, then it goes down here. Adequately proves that, somewhat proves it, or does not prove it. Same thing here. Providing an accurate and sophisticated original commentary on the multimodal text, meaning you're adding your own ideas and your own thoughts, your own conclusions, maybe your own criticisms about the text that you found, right? Versus providing a confusing and inadequate commentary. Providing a compelling analysis of the multimodal text that shows the significance and relevance to the blog post prompt. So your analysis should be following the prompt that I've given you over here. You can give me a really great analysis of, I don't know, the deeper meaning behind the music video that you chose, but if you're not following along with my prompt, you're not doing what I asked you to do. Clearly addresses all the essential details and guiding questions from the prompt. Addresses most of them, addresses some of them, does not address most of them, right? I have lots of guiding questions. Lots of guiding questions and ideas to think about in your prompt, and you also have them from Chapter 2 of Writer Designer. Next thing, use of sources. You're integrating material from the sources and discussions into the blog post so that the student's argument or viewpoint is completely clear and distinct. So the idea, the viewpoint that you are presenting should be supported with material that makes your argument clearer, that makes your viewpoint a lot more clear and distinct. You can use any of our sources, you can use any of our discussions. Consistently incorporates material from the sources to discussions that effectively support the student's paraphrasing and or analysis. So this is where you have lots of support in there. And uses more than the required sources in the prompt. So right now I have 5 sources required from you in the prompt. Chapter 1, 3, 4, Chapter 1, 2. You can use other outside sources, possibly other videos that you found, other blog posts that you found, other ideas that you've gone out and searched for, other discussion things that you remember from the discussions that we've had in class. That would be going above and beyond for that A range here. Where the B range says uses all of the required sources, uses some of the required sources, does not use any sources. And then design. For the first blog post, I'm not going to worry too much about design. You do have the background in emphasis, contrast, color, organization, alignment, and proximity from Writer Designer Chapter 2. So I would like to see a little bit of multimodality in your blog post, and I'd like to see a little bit of those 5 design elements in there, right? Maybe you want to put some emphasis on something by bolding it or by highlighting it. Maybe you want to contrast things in your multimodal text by putting 2 pictures next to each other to showing the contrast between what happened in the beginning of the video versus what happened at the end of the video, right? Maybe you want to use some color in your blog post, either the color of your text or the background color or color of some pictures or whatever it might be. Maybe it should be organized in a very clear and logical way, a way that your audience can easily ingest all of the information you're presenting. Maybe you want to play with alignment by having your text align onto the left and images on the left, and then you can switch text to the right and images on the right. Maybe you want to have the whole thing center aligned. I wouldn't suggest that, but if it's necessary for a certain part, you can use central alignment, right? And then you can look at proximity. Maybe you want to add some extra images or some screenshots from your video. They should be in proximity. They should be close to the analysis that you're providing at that section, right? So you create one nice chunk of information with an image and text in proximity to each other, right? Maybe you want to spread things further out to show that there is sections being created within your blog post. Put dividers in there to show that there are breaks, right? So those are just some of the things. I'm going to be grading it very easily for the first one, but as we learn more about design throughout the semester, I will expect that you will be applying these new design techniques to your future blog post and to your actual website. I highly expect that your website will evolve from what it looks like now till the end of the semester. When we learn new things about design, I want you to update and revise your website to fit these ideas of design. And I want it to improve as you start becoming more creative and learning more about these things. For now, the main things I want you to focus on is that it shows that it looks like a blog post, basically, right? Conventions of a blog post are overwhelmingly present. So for that reason, I want to show you this blog post, which represents the conventions of a blog post. Has a title page, has a nice little introduction around a moving image, right? A GIF, has hyperlinks in them. We have breaks between the introduction and the rest of the analysis. Lots of hyperlinking here to show the websites. Some of their images of ideas she wanted to include. This is what she's looking at in the very beginning, the home page, the analysis she's showing her audience. We have hyperlinks to our sources, which is also something I'm going to talk about here in just a minute. Emphasis with bolding here. We have proximity, analysis to image. We have proximity and spacing between. We have some symmetry, and we are playing with alignment here with images on the left, images on the right, right? Text on the left, or text on the right, text on the left. More emphasis by making this thing huge, using the quoting feature on the blog app, having lots of images, lots of screenshots, lots of little images put next to each other to show what's going on. More images, more emphasis, lots of contrast between size, contrast between alignments. So just one way that kind of looks like a blog post, which is coming back to here when we look at the conventions of a blog post. Once you read Writer Designer Chapter 3, you'll understand genre conventions a little bit more. It's basically what the audience expects the text to provide to them. So with the blog post, we want it to be multimodal. For blog post number 1, I expect to see your multimodal text that you are analyzing on somewhere in the beginning of your first blog post. Maybe you should have an introduction, and then you can embed the video that you wanted to look at, or you just show the image that you wanted to analyze, or provide some screenshots of the website that you're analyzing and the different aspects of the website that you're analyzing, whatever it might be, right? So we want it to be multimodal. That's what we're trying to focus on for the entire semester here. One question that I'm sure I'm going to get a lot is looking at citations. I've stressed already that this website is your own personal website, and you can do anything you please with this website as long as I have access to your assignments, as long as I can understand and I can access all the assignments for the class. If you want to use this more as a personal website and put some of your other artistic creations on it, or your other photos, if you like taking photos, or you want to put some of your favorite music videos on there, whatever it is, that's fine with me. So in that sense, looking at Chapter 4 of Languages and Learning, you will understand that the author has the option of whatever language they want to use to create whatever bonds, social bonds they want with their audience. If they want to use distancing language with their audience, if you want to be very distant from your audience, then maybe you want to make your blog more academic and more formal. So you use more formal language that keeps the audience at more of a distance. If that is your plan, if that is your goal, then maybe using APA or MLA or Chicago citations would be much more appropriate, because then it fits the genre conventions that you have proposed to your audience, right? That you want this to be very formal and academic. If you want to use sort of a socially bonding language with your audience, which would be more friendly and conversational, more like face-to-face sort of real life language, then that's going to be a lot less academic and less formal. So in that sense, using APA, MLA citations, they're going to look strange inside of your blog post. So maybe you just want to say, according to Writer Designer Chapter 2, we know that the context, audience, and purpose are the main aspects of multimodal rhetoric, right? Something like that. According to Cheryl Ball, which is the author of Writer Designer, right? These are the things you might want to do. And so in this sense, it's completely up to you how you want to use the sources. But your audience should know that that is not your own research, right? You can't take credit for the things that you read. You have to give them credit somehow. So you can say according to, or as Cheryl Ball tells us, or after I read Languages and Learning Chapter 3, I realized that blah, 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 right? So you give some credit to where the information is coming from. If you want to use citations and still be informal, that's perfectly fine. That's kind of what she does over here, right? She takes it one step further, right? This is a lot of universal principles of design, page 22, but she likes to add some humor into it by doing something like this, because she's quoted UPD so many times, she's getting tired of doing it. So she's still using socially bonding language to bond with her audience, right? There's different videos that she's brought in that we'll look at later. But it is up to you the style of language that you want to use for these blog posts. It can be very, very conversational and friendly, as if you're just talking to your friends, or it can be very academic, as if it were being submitted for your 300 level philosophy course, whatever it might be, right? That is up to you. I'm giving you that freedom. I want you to write in a way that's comfortable, but I need to be able to understand the analysis that you're putting together. So again, you are reading about audience, context, purpose, ethos, pathos, logos, emphasis, organization, social bonding language, distancing language, literacies, all these other things. I don't want this just to be going into your head, just to be copied and pasted and put into a blog post and you're not actually learning anything. I want this to go into your brain, and I want you to start using these concepts in real life and with our assignments. So your website should have a purpose. What is the purpose of your website? The context of your website at this point is for this class, right? It's brand new, being used for this class, but does it really need to have that purpose now? Does it need to have that purpose in the future? What do you want to do with it? It's based off of the audience that you want to reach. If you just want me to be your audience and you're never going to show this to anybody else, well, then your website's going to look a little bit different than somebody who really wants to get into blogging and is going to have 700 followers on their website at the end of the semester, right? That is going to look like very different websites. So just because we're reading about all these theories and all these ideas, I don't want them just to go into your brain just to be copied and pasted and put back into my assignments. I want you to actually use them. I want you to think about them, because this is what successful content creators think about. Every choice was made for a specific reason. When we see anything, it was made for a specific reason. Right? When we see things like this, as horrible as they look, these choices were made for a reason. Probably not the best reason. This is not the most rhetorically successful digital text, multimodal text that is around. But when we see this, we need to be able to break these things down and analyze it and figure out what was the purpose for these things, right? If we can figure out the mistakes of other people, then we know jamming all of this text into this really random poster and using so many different font styles and so many different colors and lots of emphasis with capitalization sometimes and lowercase sometimes and years and numbers sometimes and not other times and small letters sometimes and different colors sometimes and bold on a 14 when there's no reason to bold a 14, right? We know that we see these mistakes here, so we're not going to make them later. I want you to be keeping these ideas sort of floating around in your brain, especially as you're just walking through campus or walking through the city or walking through Mega. There's so many multimodal text all around us all the time. What we need to do to become strong content creators is we need to start focusing on these things, actually seeing them and trying to figure out what were the conscious decisions behind these things. Are they successful? Are they an effective piece of communication, an effective multimodal piece of communication? Or do they fail like this? And why do they fail? So if we can learn why they fail, then we know we're not going to make the same mistakes as them. As we are transforming from just content consumers into content creators, we need to be aware of all the things around us in this world and how people can use design and can use the rhetorical situation to influence our decisions in some way. That is the main idea behind what's going on for blog post 1 and what are the sort of basis, the foundation that I want to build for you for the rest of this class. Everything we get in from here is a lot more theoretical and a little bit more difficult to interpret and to understand. These are the basic things. We need to be able to have this as a foundation in order to keep moving further and further and further into our different analytical perspectives.
All right, so we'll stop it there. Let's come back. One thing I want to show you before we end this video is, in case you need a touch-up on the basic aspects of rhetoric, ethos, pathos, logos, I have given a nice PowerPoint to you here, just going over what ethos, pathos, and logos are in case you don't remember from when you took 150. There's also some other things about digital rhetoric and the canon and modes of discourse that can help you out in trying to refresh your brain about ethos, pathos, logos, right? Traditional rhetoric. Okay, so I know that was a lot to take in for, just our second real class, basically. But I think it's all very important information, especially since blog post 1 is due so soon, right? Everything that I've talked about in all 3 of these videos and my video from earlier in the week are all going to be very important parts of blog post number 1. So hopefully that clarifies any questions you might have. Obviously, if you have other questions, feel free to reach out to me on Telegram or on through email, and I will answer those questions for you. Remember, blog post 1 is due pretty soon, but otherwise, that's it for this week. You guys enjoy your rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys next week. See ya.